Hi everyone, it's me. Welcome to today's video. Today we are wrapping up all the books I read in April. We had a really good reading month, I think. I read a lot of new releases, very highly anticipated books. I read a couple of arcs, so I'm excited to share with you guys. For the summary of what I read in April, I did read 13 books, 6 of those were fantasy, and then along with that I read 5 romances, 1 literary fiction, and then 1 thriller, which if you guys know me is huge because I have not read a thriller since November. So it's been 6 full months, and the reason I haven't read a thriller, there is a police car outside. As we're talking about thrillers, the cops arrive. But anyways, in November, I read, it was the Lucy Foley book. It was called The Guest List. I read that in November, did not like it, did not do it for me. And at that point, I had already been falling out of love with thrillers. So after I read The Guest List, I just decided then and there, thrillers are just not for me. I'm just never gonna read a thriller ever again. But I did receive an arc for a thriller this past month and decided to give it a go. So yeah, after a 6-month cleanse of no thrillers, I ended up picking my first thriller this month. So that being said, let's start talking about all the books I read. Oh yes, and April TBR, 5 out of 5, all complete, pat on the back. I'm actually really proud of myself for sticking to my monthly TBRs. There was only 1 month. Literally since I started picking monthly TBRs, I have only failed 1 month, and that month I missed by 1 book because that 1 book was a thriller. So yeah, we're doing really good with our monthly TBRs. But okay, we're stalling. Let's get into it. We are going to start with fantasy books first, because that is the largest category for this month. And the first book we're going to talk about is Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven. I was so excited for this read. I wouldn't even say it was anticipated because I hadn't even heard of it until it came out, or like just shortly before it came out. But once I heard the premise, I had such high expectations for this book. And Laura Steven, I think she's a debut author, is she? I actually can't remember if she's a debut author or not, but I do know that this is the first book I have read from her. But this book was initially described to me as something very similar to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and that just completely sold me because that is one of my favorite books of all time. I love E. Schwab so much, and so I had such high expectations. Like, if you're going to compare a book to Addie LaRue, you're promising some great things. But this book in particular follows Evelyn as she lives through many reincarnations. And through every reincarnation, she actually remembers her past lives. This story spans over like 1,000 years, like a very long spanning story, and that is why I think it gets compared to Addie LaRue a lot. But the catch is, in every single one of Evelyn's lives, before she turns 18 years old, she meets someone named Arden. They usually fall in love, but they always kill each other. And then they both reincarnate, and then they do it again and again and again and again. We have this story of these two souls having this bond that is so strong, but also with this mistrust between them. And they have this like deep soul love and like just this long lasting relationship, but obviously it's very tumultuous. But the problem is, and there are many problems, but the main problem at hand in Evelyn's current life is that she actually really likes her current life, and she has a little sister who is sick. And Evelyn has to stay alive for like a month longer so she can help save her little sister. But the thing is, her 18th birthday is coming up. It's like in a week. And so she has this very limited time to find Arden in this life. She has to somehow convince him to keep her alive in this life past 18 years old. And so doesn't that sound like just a wonderful story? I overall liked this book. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. There was so much potential. I think first of all, the writing is absolutely stunning. Laura Steven has one of those writing styles that is very descriptive. She describes things very poetically. It's beautiful. But what I found with this book is it was too short for me to be able to tell this story. In the structure of this book, we get kind of like thrown immediately into their story. We don't necessarily see like the beginnings of their bond. We jump in and then we start like going through the lives and piecing clues together. And it's just immediately intense because immediately their connection is already so strong. You're just like peeking into this intense soulmate bond that the two of them have. And it was a little jolting, but to be honest, I kind of liked it that way. I liked kind kind of just being thrown in there and being like, hey, here you are, here's the story, figure it out. But as we continue to jump through the incarnations, I felt like I wanted more time with each life. We were kind of like barely getting to know each version of Evelyn and Arden. They would reincarnate like sometimes as female, sometimes as male. Their personalities would always be like slightly different, and so their dynamic between each other was also slightly different with every life. And they also like took away something new from every life, which I really liked. Like every life gave you another tidbit of information or strengthened their bond further or broke their bond further apart. Like their lives were pretty unique in that way, but I just wanted to spend more time with maybe not all the lives I saw, but with some of the lives I saw. There was one life in particular, and it was around page 30 of the book, and that life cut me deep. It cut me deep. We barely had any time with them, but for some reason that chapter hit me so hard. I like almost started crying at page 30, but then that was it. Then we just like jumped into another life, and we kind of like referred back to that life sometimes, but I wanted to just live more in that time. And I found that with a couple of the lives, and then some other lives I was like, maybe we didn't need this. Maybe we could have combined this with another life, and maybe this book would have been a bit more successful with me with like 2 less incarnations, but use those pages to like further develop the ones we had. I loved the ending. I loved the conclusion of the story, but the part like right before the ending, the big climax was, I don't know, it felt out of place to me. We were like on this consistent like vibe through the story, and then like the climax of it seemed like it belonged to another book a little bit, just like in the way it was written, in the events that were happening. It seemed a little out of place and a little bit disjointed, but overall I did love this book. Again, it was beautifully written. It did get me emotional at parts, and there were a lot of like aha moments, like big reveals that you were suspecting but you weren't sure of, and like you weren't sure of how it was going to come to fruition. Really liked this read. I gave it a 3.75, so really enjoyed it, and I would still recommend, but I was expecting like a 5-star read from the description, and maybe I shouldn't have because I've never read Laura Steven before, but yeah, I thought it was really good. But it is one of those rare cases that I think could have benefited from more pages. That was Our Infinite Fates. Okay, Immortal Dark by Tigest, Girma. Very different vibe. This one is like a dark academia vampire romantasy book. It's marketed as The Cruel Prince meets The Ninth House, but other than like maybe a few vibe things, I don't really see the connection. Maybe more towards Ninth House over Cruel Prince, because we have all these like different houses, like kind of a secret society vibe. So yeah, maybe this book is like a vampire Ninth House, kind of, but like not really. In this book, we are set at a university where vampires and humans have learned to coexist with each other. So they have this little inner society set up. They have all these rules and laws within their society, and vampires and humans are very controlled with each other. So in this world, vampires have been limited in their strengths and stuff. So one thing is that vampires can only drink from 80 different familial bloodlines. So they can't like drink from every single human out there. There's a very specific list of humans that they can drink from, and there's just like there's a lot of other rules, like they can only drink from a human once they've completed this like companionship bond, and they can't turn another vampire unless they give up their own immortality, like their own lives. We follow Keaton in the story, and she is a human, and she's obviously part of one of those 80 bloodlines that vampires can feed from. But as a kid, she was separated from this university. Her aunt actually brought her away from the university, hoping that her and her sister could escape this vampire lifestyle and just like try and live a more normal life. But one day her sister goes missing, and Keaton suspects that a vampire has something to do with it. And then on top of that, she gets the news that her aunt has passed away. So now Keaton is the oldest in their family. She is the one that their house at the university would pass down to, but she would have to return to the university to claim the house for her own. And if she doesn't, the one last vampire who is like tied to her house would take over, and she doesn't want that. So she decides to go back to reclaim what is rightfully hers, and also to find out what happened with her sister. I thought this book had a really interesting setup. I thought it was very unique in the way that we tied in a lot of East African mythology, which is something that I do not know much about. It is something I have not read a lot about. And so I found those aspects and learning that lore was really interesting. I really liked the vibe and the atmosphere of the book. The setting was impeccable. The dark academia, the gothicness, the horror of it all. It was very vampire gothic horror. Like it was, if you want that vibe, this book is it. But there were a couple things that I did not like about this book. So the one thing is I found the writing felt clunky to me to understand. Whenever this happens to me, I can never really pinpoint exactly why it happens, like what it is about the writing style, but I found myself reading and then I would catch myself and be like, do I understand what I just read? And I would have to jump back and reread certain sentences over and over and over again to be able to understand them. It's very strange because I would not say the writing in this book is complex at all. It's not overly abstract. It's very practical, regular writing, but just the way the sentences were strung together just maybe didn't get along with my brain. It started off at the prologue and it just kept happening throughout the entire book. So that was weird to me. The other thing that I didn't love or understand really was the romance in this book. I was at first very excited for the romance to kick in because it seemed to me like this book was building up to a real enemies to lovers plot. Enemies to lovers is such a popular trend. It's such a popular trope these days that every book, I swear, every book is marketed as an enemies to lovers, and most of the time it is not an enemies to lovers, but I can say that this book definitely started out as enemies and had the potential to be true enemies to lovers. The thing I didn't understand about this book is it nailed the enemy side, but the lover side, I was not so sure about. I was actually talking to Freya while reading this book because I read this in like a little collaboration video where we picked each other's reads for the week, and I texted her and I was like, I don't understand why the enemies started lovering. Like, what was the reason for the enemies to turn lovers? I, in my mind, was like, you should still be enemies. There's no reason for you to start getting close with each other right now. But I feel like halfway through the book, we had this like big shift in priorities of the characters, in the goal of the book, and it just kind of lost me at that point. So a lot of the decision making of the characters caught me off guard, and I didn't understand the reasoning behind a lot of the actions and things that they did. It's also one of those books that I just ended up giving up trying to understand all the rules and regulations of this world because there weren't like so many that me as an experienced fantasy reader couldn't understand, but I feel like there were a lot of rules that were bent a lot. Like the rules were there when it was convenient, but then when something had to happen in the plot, that rule kind of like disappeared for a little bit or like got bent or like it didn't matter as much in that moment. And there were a lot of moments like that in this book that I didn't understand. So I kind of like, as I was reading, gave up on trying to logic through everything and ended up liking the story, but not loving it. So I'm not fully convinced on this one. There were a lot of good parts to it, but I don't believe I'll be picking up the sequel. Great vibes though on this one. All right. This stunning book, The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen. This one is very much like a romantasy with trials. We have the structure that we all have come to know and love with a romantasy book, but this one is Greek gods meets urban fantasy, which was a really fun take. We are set in San Francisco. We have our like Olympian god world. We have our mortal realm, which is Earth. Then we have our underworld, of course. And so Lyra, our main character, starts out in our regular world. She lives in San Francisco. She is a thief, so also very stereotypical like romantasy beginnings of a female protagonist. In this world, every 100 years, the gods host this competition called the Crucible, where each god picks their own human champion to represent them, where they go through a series of 12 trials, and the human who wins the trials determines like which god ends up being the ruler, like the king of the gods, for the next 100 years. So it's a very high stakes competition. The gods are really invested into it. Lyra, of course, she does not want anything to do with the Crucible, with the gods. She wants to stay on the download, but of course, she gets chosen as a champion. And not only is she a champion, but she gets chosen by Hades. And Hades has not entered the Crucible ever since the Crucible was set up. Like, he has never entered, so all the other gods are immediately suspicious. So immediately Lyra is at a disadvantage because it's harder for her to make allies, no one trusts her, and also no one wants Hades to be the king of the gods. So I found this book to just be like, honestly, a really fun read for the vibes, for the trials. I love a trial-based book. I know it's been done again and again and again, but I eat it up every single time, especially when the trials are creative. I do think sometimes trials can get boring when they're just like plain old trials, like throw people into a ring, let them fight it out. But I love when trials are creative. And this book kind of reminded me of Phantasma in a way, where each trial was based on like a specific theme. So in Phantasma, where each trial was based on a deadly sin, these trials were based on the Greek gods. So every god was able to design a trial based on their own strength and power. It was just a whole lot of fun. Some of the writing and dialogue was cheesy, but I feel like that happens in a lot of romantasy books these days. The romance happened a little bit too quick for me. It was a little bit too like insta love. And there were some holes in this world and some plot points that did not fully get resolved. There were inconsistencies, but it was just pure fun. There were a lot of like nice, fun, found friendships that were made in this book that I absolutely loved. And this book also has one of those endings that forces you to read the next one because it just like throws you. It's one of those endings where you're just like, okay, well, like now I need to know what happens next. So I will definitely be reading the second book in the series when it comes out. And that is The Games Gods Play. Next up, House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. My goodness, you guys. I don't know why it took me so long to read this book, but this is one of those books that like I kind of got annoyed at everyone for talking about it. You know, when you hear a lot about something and you're like, oh my gosh, you guys, like stop talking about this book. I get it. And then for some reason, it makes you want to read the book less. It's like reverse psychology. I don't know what it is, but I just kept hearing that this book feels like a warm hug. And I was like, how can it feel like such a warm hug that is what everyone says about this book? After reading this book now, I can confirm that this book does feel like a warm hug, and I have become one of you. This is a cozy queer fantasy. We follow Linus Baker, who is a caseworker for the Department of Magical Youth. Hold on, what is it called? The department in charge of magical youth. Yes, that is what it's called. So this department works to oversee and regulate children who have magic. In this world, people with magic are seen as strange, and so kids born with magic are, oh, it's so sad. They are separated from their parents at birth and placed into these orphanages, and that is what Linus works to oversee and regulate. Linus himself is like a very by the book guy. He does his job perfectly. He has a very strict routine. He wakes up at the same time every morning. Everything is like perfectly on schedule for him, and he thrives on routine, which like I can totally relate to. But one day he gets assigned to investigate this very top secret orphanage on an island, and when he arrives, he immediately sees this is unlike anything he's ever encountered. This house is run very like not by the book at all, and his first instinct is like, this is not okay. We have to fix this. I have to report them and we have to fix this. But as he starts to spend more time with the children, as he gets to know the like owner, like the father of the house, he starts feeling something shift inside of him. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. It's so like pure. I would say the beginning of this book honestly was darker than I thought it would be. I felt really sad at the beginning of this book with like the things that were being described, with the children being taken away from their parents and stuff. It didn't really go like deep into that, but just like knowing that that's what the book is about made me really sad. But as you read on, it turns into this lovely cozy story. The found family in this book, impeccable. One of my favorite found families, truly. I love every single one of the kids. I love Linus. I love Arthur in here. I love Zoe. I love everyone. I love everyone in this book. And I really enjoyed this book because it read like a movie. When I'm reading, I feel like I don't have a good enough imagination to picture things. Like sometimes when I picture things, it'll be very vague. It'll be very abstract. I won't picture details. I'll just kind of like be placed into this very fuzzy world around me. But this writing is the type of writing that reads like you're watching it happen. From the descriptions, from the actions to the dialogue, like I could hear the characters saying these words. It's such an easy, quick book to read. There is the cutest little subplot of romance that honestly like didn't really have to be there, but was just kind of the cherry on top of everything in the book. And it was just a book that made me smile. It was a book that made me feel warm and fuzzy. It was just so good. I have no notes about this book. I think I am unsure if I want to read the sequel, which is a very strange thing because I love this book, and usually when I give a book 5 stars, obviously I want to read the sequel, but I have heard that the sequel is not as good, and I do feel like this book reads perfectly as a standalone. I think it was actually first intended to be a standalone, and then maybe it became popular, or maybe TJ Klune just felt inspired to write about these characters again, but this book does read very much like a standalone, and I don't really have an urge to pick up another book about these characters, even though I love them so much. It's just one of those books that like it ties so well together at the end that you don't want to continue their story. You know what I mean? Like you just want them to end there. You just want that to be their happy ever after, and you just want to leave it at that, and like anything further might ruin the perfect image you have for them. Like that's kind of how I feel about this book. I have heard mixed things about the second book, so if you guys have read the second book, please let me know if you think it's worth reading or not, because I'm currently on the fence. But yeah, that is House in the Cerulean Sea. It was so good. I feel like I'm going through these books so slowly today, you guys. Enchantra by Kaylie Smith is next. I'm gonna speed through this one because I feel like I talked a lot about this one in my reading vlog where I read this. This was in my reading new releases video. But Enchantra is the second book in the Phantasma series. It's a gothic romantasy series. Phantasma is definitely a lot more dark. Enchantra it has a few of those dark elements, but it's just a bit less dark and less gothic than Phantasma. Phantasma follows Ophelia and Enchantra follows Genevieve. Genevieve's story is very much like she wants to find herself. She wants to get to know her origins and find more about like her familial line and where she came from, and she wants to find someone to relate to because she feels very alone. So the book starts with Genevieve finding these old letters between her mom and this mysterious man. She decides to write a letter to this guy, pretending to be her mom. She then gets invited to this man's house called Enchantra, and then so she's like, yeah, I'm gonna go. She arrives, she's obviously not her mom, but she's just hoping that she can show up and be like, well, I'm not my mom passed away, but I'm here and I am her daughter and I want to learn more about her. When she arrives, however, she finds herself trapped in this deadly game that this family plays every single year, and she has just shown up at the wrong place at the wrong time, and as a human playing this game, the stakes are much higher for her. So I ate this book up. I devoured it. I did really like Phantasma. I liked this one even more. I feel like just naturally this one suits my vibe more. Like I liked Phantasma, but it was a little bit more dark romance and was actually like very out of my regular genre that I read and enjoy. Enchantra I feel like was more just up my alley. Similar to the games gods play, this Enchantra and Phantasma both have these games that are made up of like a series of trials that are just so creative and so fun to read. I loved this one in particular because in this one, each trial or like round of the game was chosen by each member of the family. So like you could kind of like get to know each member of the family and like what they prioritized and what their strategies were, and it was really fun. I also fell in love with the family in this book. The dynamics between the siblings is just so interesting to read. I love this family. I want to read more about them, and you can really see how this game has affected them. Like you can see the really strong family bonds toward each other. Some of them really love each other deeply, but when they enter this game, they're forced to, I don't know, block out a certain part of them and change into like the game version of them. And you can see how tough the game has been on them for like, I don't know, the centuries that this family has been playing the game. I loved it. It was so much fun. It is a lot spicier than the books that I normally enjoy, but there's something about Kaylie Smith that like, I love her books. I love them and I can't wait for the next book in the series. Okay, so the last fantasy I read this month was on my Kindle. I actually got the e-arc for Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross, which like, that felt so cool. Every time I receive an arc, my mind still gets blown. It's crazy. But Wild Reverence, if you guys don't know, is actually a prequel to the Divine Rivals duology, which like, come on, you guys. I loved Divine Rivals so much. When I heard there was a prequel, I immediately was here for it. And yeah, I was able to read it early. This book does come out in September, I believe. This was so good. This was so good. It lived up to my expectations. It actually exceeded my expectations because I ended up actually liking this more than Divine Rivals. So this book is a YA fantasy romantasy, and we learn more about the gods. So in Divine Rivals, we like didn't have very much magic. It was like a little bit of a magical world, and we had a little bit of influence from the gods in the world. But in this book, we truly focus on the gods. Our main characters are the gods. And so just overall, we have a lot more magic, a lot more mythology compared to the original duology, which I really truly love. In this one, we follow Matilda. She is a goddess. She's like a child goddess at the beginning of the book, and we follow her as she grows into her adulthood and comes into her powers. When she was born, she was named as the goddess of the heralds, which just means she is like a messenger for the gods, and it seemed like she had a very lowly position. Like no one wanted her power. Everyone was like, oh, you're just a messenger, you just like deliver letters back and forth. So she really was overlooked. She stayed like under the radar, but because she's a messenger, she ends up like, you know, traveling a lot throughout the realms, through the underlings realm, which is where she is from, to the mortal realm, and then also to the skyward realm as she's like delivering all these messages. And so along the way, she meets mortals, she meets people from the skyward realm, she learns all of these new things, she like opens up her eyes, and also along the way, she, you know, faces some hard times, some battles. She has to start choosing her priorities, who she wants to side with, who deserves her loyalty, and just like comes more into her powers. So in many ways, this book reminded me of Circe because we have that story. We have that similar story of like an underlooked goddess who travels travels to a different realm and then gets to know people from like all sides of the world. So very similar feel in that way. This book, I think, was a very slow burn story as well. It was very slow at the beginning, but slow in a way that like you're still reading Rebecca Ross's writing, so it's still beautiful. And just talking about her writing, I seriously think this is the best writing I have read from her. It is stunning. It is gorgeous. Like if you love Rebecca Ross's beautiful writing, you are in for a treat with this book because it was just beautiful. Like it was so good. And as we just like went on in this slow, long spanning journey, there were parts that got me to start tearing up. I started feeling emotional about a lot of things. And we just have like some really beautiful bonds between characters in this book. Truly beautiful bonds. We have a lot of lessons on trust and love. I think this is one of those books that is going to have a long-lasting impact on me. Like it was truly so good. So if you loved Divine Rivals and you're itching for more in that world, but you want to know more about the lore, you want a version with like more magic in it, definitely check this one out. I think you will love it. You will get a little treat in the epilogue. You will. So those are all the fantasies. We're getting into the romances. The first one, again, I'm gonna go through this one a little quick because I read this in a reading vlog, but Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home by Jessa Hastings. This book is another one that I read in the video where Freya chose my reads for a week. I was scared going into this book because I do not like Magnolia Parks. I did not love the first Magnolia Parks book. I really liked the Daisy Hates book, and then I was kind of like dreading going back into Magnolia's story because I just wanted to skip to the next Daisy book. But it's one of those series that like, you know, you have to read it all. Like I'm never gonna read a series and skip books in a series. Unless there are those like interconnected standalone romances, like that's fine. But in terms of this, it's very much like you need to know what's going on. But in this book, we have very much like a homecoming story, a coming back to yourself, coming into like maybe a new version of yourself type of a story. And I did like this one a lot more than the first Magnolia book. We learn a lot of things in this book that make me not love the characters. I still don't love Magnolia and BJ as characters, but it made me like understand their journeys more. I understand more of their like constant pull towards each other now after reading this because we had some pretty giant reveals in this book. I get it now. Like I understand it. I'm still not sold on them. I'm more like addicted to just like seeing the things they do to each other, but I don't necessarily like what's going on. I have a weird relationship with Magnolia and BJ, you guys, but I will say I like Magnolia better than I did in the first book. I still hate BJ. I understand their relationship a little bit more now, and I am more willing to continue with their story. The next book in the series is the next Daisy book, which I'm excited about, but I am also gonna read the 5th book in the series, which is the last Magnolia book. And I will say I kind of am excited for Into the Dark now. So this book convinced me on their story, and I am eager to see what Jessa does in the last book to like fully push me there, to fully get me there, because Freya was even telling me that like she didn't like BJ till the very last book, and I am still like, how is Jessa Hastings gonna make me like BJ? Like after all he's done, after all this, like how would I ever like him as a character, as a person, as anything? But Freya and I have oddly similar book tastes, so if she was convinced by the end, I have hope. But yeah, I do talk more about my experience reading this book in my reading vlog, so go watch that if you want to know more about this one. I read the Happy Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez. This is actually the last book in her backlist that I had to read to like catch up on all of her books. I was excited about this one. So this one, Abby's books are in 2 sets kind of, or maybe 3 sets now, because she has her first original trilogy, which this one belongs to. She has her second trilogy, which is like the Part of Your World, Just for the Summer, Yours Truly, that set, and then her newest book, Say You'll Remember Me, is I think like the start to a new category, like a new section. I will be honest, I have not loved her backlist. Like I like her from Part of Your World onwards. I have liked her books, but these 3 like older books from her have not been my favorite. This was definitely my favorite out of like her backlist. Our main character Sloane lost her fiance in an accident 2 years ago by the beginning of this book. Since the accident, she has never really gotten back to a sense of normalcy. She's kind of been living as a shell of herself. She's not doing the things she loves. Like she previously loved to cook. She had a whole like cooking blog. She has not cooked a single thing since the accident. She stopped painting for herself. But one day, a bizarre thing happens. A dog jumps into her car. And then from that, she starts contacting the owner of the dog named Jason. And as like she starts talking to Jason and like being like, hey, like what's going on? Do you need me to take care of your dog? She starts getting to know him. He starts getting to know her. And he actually happens to be this like on the rise musician stud of a man. And this meet cute, this setup, it was so cute. I was giggling, I was kicking my feet. I thought the first bit of this book was adorable. And I was like, oh, maybe this is the book from her backlist that's going to be the one that wins me over. This book also, it was insta-lovey. I feel like a lot of Abby's books are insta-lovey, and sometimes it works. Like in Just for the Summer, the insta-love was like really, really good. I don't know why it like worked really well for me, but in Say You'll Remember Me, it didn't work so well for me. In this book, I would say the insta-love was really cute. So there's that one thing going about this book, and the first 100 pages of this book were perfection. But unfortunately, it kind of like crumbled apart and went downhill from there. After the first 100 pages, something switched. His POV started giving me the ick. So this book is dual POV. And at first, his POV was like, you know, it was pretty good. It was cute. But then he started thinking these things and saying these things that really turned me off, and I really didn't like some of the things he was thinking. And then this book just turned into a whole miscommunication trope, and I hate when romance books do this and build up all of this to just have a miscommunication third act conflict. I did not love that. A lot of this book also ended up being about Jason's fame and like the two of them dealing with his fame and like with him being on the road and dealing with paparazzi and stuff being in the public, and I just didn't want this book to be about that. Like, I wanted to see her healing journey. I wanted to see more of her dealing with her grief and like coming back to herself, finding her life again, like finding the joys in life again. And we did have a bit of that, but that was all in the first bit of this book, and then it just turned into Jason and his fame and his like rock star life. I feel like this story would have been so much better without that. I feel like we didn't need that. I didn't care about that side of the story. I was like, I don't care if your pictures are being shown to whatever and like gossip blogs are like twisting things up. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about that. I want to know more about her journey. I want to know more about Sloane. That just didn't seem to end up being the priority of the story. I didn't love that, but I will say overall this was my favorite of her backlist, so that's good. But I definitely still love like newer Abby Jimenez compared to her older books. But I'm glad I have finished this collection now. Okay, I read I Am Not Jessica Chen by Anne Liang. This is a YA light academia romance with a bit of magical realism. In this book, we follow Jenna Chen, who is a high school student. She has a cousin named Jessica who is the same age as her. They've like been in the same class with each other growing up, but Jessica has always been like the slightly shinier version of Jenna. Like, Jessica gets better grades. She's just like a little bit prettier. She gets more attention from like friends and boys and everything. She's just like the enhanced version of Jenna, at least from Jenna's eyes. And so at the beginning of the book, Jenna gets a letter saying she has gotten rejected from Harvard, and Jessica gets accepted. So in this big emotional moment, Jenna makes a wish and she's like, I just want to be Jessica Chen. Like, I would just love to feel what it is to be like, to be her, and to live that life. And the universe decides to be very literal with this one. So Jenna wakes up the next day and we have sort of like a one-sided Freaky Friday type of an incident where Jenna wakes up in Jessica's body. But the real Jessica is nowhere to be found. Like, Jessica does not become Jenna. Jenna just doesn't exist anymore. And now Jenna is in Jessica. So she's like, what do I do now? She starts trying to like just figure it out day by day. And as she starts to live as Jessica, she starts realizing maybe Jessica's life isn't as perfect as it seems like from the outside, and Jenna also just starts to miss her own life. But Jenna now has to figure out how to get back into her body because the people around her start forgetting who Jenna is, and she starts just kind of like getting erased from the world. So I loved the premise of this book, and I also just love how Anne Liang inserts a lot of her Asian upbringing into her stories. It's very nice for me to read as someone who had an Asian upbringing, and so I can relate to a lot of the things that she puts into her books. I think that's definitely one of the reasons why I love her books so much, is because I can just relate to them on such a deep level. However, I think I sadly need to take a little bit of a break from her books, at least her YA books, which actually I think all her books are YA. I still love A Song to Drown Rivers by her. It's my favorite book from her. It's still one of my like favorite books of all time. I will never ever ever stop recommending that book. But I do feel like with her YA like high school romances, they're just too YA for me. They're getting too YA for me. They're getting a little bit too rinse and repeat for me. And I think what I liked about A Song to Drown Rivers is that it was so out of her style. It was so different to what she normally writes. And I just want her to branch out and write more like that. Like I want that and Liang. And overall it felt too YA for me. I don't think I got a lot out of the story. It was a very enjoyable read for me. I did enjoy it, but my camera just overheated. I hope it's okay. I just didn't get as much as I wanted from this book. So I still would recommend her books, but I feel like once you've read one of her like YA teenage romances, you've read all of them. Kind of. Oh my gosh, Ready or Not by Kara Bastone. I'm gonna speed through the rest of these because there's only one in here that I didn't cover in a reading vlog remaining, and my camera's like freaking out and overheating and running low on battery too. So Ready or Not by Kara Bastone is a pregnancy trope romance, which is something I never thought I would really enjoy. But Eve at the beginning of this book finds herself pregnant from a one-night stand, and so she just has to figure out her pregnancy and what she's going to do. She tells her best friend at the beginning of the book, who has a really weird reaction to it, and so Eve finds herself without her like usual support system. So she starts branching out to like find more support to go through this journey with her. So she reaches out to the baby daddy, she reaches out to like her other friend who also happens to be her best friend's brother, and we just follow her. I don't want to say too much about this book because I kind of want you to just go into it without knowing much about it. The book is literally split up into trimesters, so there's a lot of pregnancy in this book, which again is something I didn't ever think I would enjoy, but I loved this so much. I thought the romance, like the relationship in this book, was so healthy, so green flag. We have this golden retriever book boyfriend, which again is something I didn't know that I would love so much, but this is one of my top book boyfriends. Yeah, I seriously, like right now on the spot, cannot think of any other book boyfriend in the mortal world, in the non-magical world, that would top the book boyfriend in this book. I loved it. I also really liked how Kara Bastone developed the characters in this book. No one was perfect. Everyone did something that I was like, oh, really? You're gonna do that? But it kind of made everything more realistic, and it made me appreciate the characters more because everyone is struggling with something. Everyone has some sort of insecurity. Everyone has some sort of an issue. No one is perfect, and like even all the side characters in this book had their own things going on. Like some people were really strong in some ways, but really weak in other ways. And Kara Bastone, I feel like, really captured that well and told that story really, really well about like the most side characters in this book. I just really liked a lot that was going on here. It felt like a really deep, like adult book to me, but also something that's like lighthearted at the same time. Oh, you guys, my camera overheated again, so I don't really know where we left off. I don't know what's going on today in this yap sesh. I've never had my camera actually overheat before, and in today's session it's overheated twice. I don't know where we left off with Ready or Not, but overall I just really liked it as an adult romance book. I thought it was mature, I thought it was a breath of fresh air, and I'm really excited to read more of Kara Bastone. We have the one and only Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This book, at first I feel like I was seeing only positive reviews, and then lately I've been seeing more like mixed or negative reviews about this book, but I really enjoyed this book. Is it my favorite Emily Henry book? No, but I still really liked it. This book follows Alice, who goes to this very small island to interview this woman who was very, very famous previously, but has disappeared for the past 20 years. Alice has somehow tracked her down and yeah, is going to visit her, is going to interview with the hopes that she will be able to write a biography on her life, which would be a huge like breakthrough in her career. This would be a really, really high profile book. But when she arrives, she discovers that Margaret, this is the woman, is also talking to another writer at the same time. So then Alice is like, oh, like I have competition. And Hayden, who is the rival writer, just on paper has way more credentials than her, has a career already that she is so jealous of. Like she's loved the books he's written. He's very well known for writing good biographies. But Margaret, instead of making a decision on the spot, decides that she's going to trial run the both of them for 1 month where they both will like alternate days, like talking to her, interviewing her. And by the end of the month, she will decide like who she likes more her basically to write her book. And so yeah, we go on from there. Alice learns more about Hayden. They like start running into each other on the island, and we go into a lot of Margaret's backstory as well. So this book is very reminiscent of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, obviously just from the initial premise. I feel like the vibes though in this were very Malibu Rising. This book overall was just, it read like a Taylor Jenkins Reid. If you put Taylor Jenkins Reid on the title of this book, like as the author, I wouldn't even think twice. Like the writing style was very, very TJR, but I did feel a lot of similarities to Malibu Rising because we were learning not only about Margaret, but more about her grandparents and how they met and came to be, and then like her parents and like all the members of her family. And it felt a lot more like it was a slow story like Malibu Rising was. And my reading experience for this one, the first 50% of the book, I was not 100% invested. I was immediately loving Emily Henry's writing. I think her writing is very sophisticated in this book, and I think she has really crafted her like writing style here. So I really love that. But in terms of the story, I wasn't really like grabbed into it. I wasn't fully invested. I didn't really care about any of the characters or what was happening. But literally at the halfway point, that is when everything changed for me. I started feeling more attached to the characters. I was piecing things together. I was predicting things. Like I just felt more involved in reading the story. I was more like active in the reading experience. And by the end of the book, I just thought everything came full circle so nicely. It's one of those stories that like, it's very subtle. It's very nuanced in a way that like, I mean, it didn't really hit me very hard, but it was kind of like a, like it was a pleasant read. It was a nice experience. And by the end, yeah, I just felt like very complete, very satisfied. And it wasn't anything that shook me to my core or like made me cry or like made me react in like a strong way, but it just felt nice. And that's what I liked about it. Like it wasn't like a blockbuster, heavy, hard hitter, but it just was a nice read. It was a pleasant experience. It was a breath of fresh air for me. All right, A Man Called Ove. Now this was a hard hitter. This is a book that made me sob. So this is the literary fiction that I read for April, the one and only little lonely literary fiction. There's a cat hair in it. And I did cover this in a reading vlog, so again, I'm gonna go quick on this one. But in this book, we follow a very grumpy, curmudgeon man who is very set in his ways. Similar to Linus Baker in House of the Cerulean Sea, but in a more grumpy way. Ove just has his routine. He has his habits. He does things very to the dot every single day. Does not like disruptions. He likes his neighborhood very quiet and orderly. But one day, these new neighbors move in, and their entrance like right off the bat, very chaotic. It's a funny little like first run-in with each other at the beginning of the book, and just from there, I don't want to say too much about this book because this is another book I want you to just read and let Fredrik Backman tell you the story. We just go on in the story as like he gets to know these neighbors, and he's this old man, so like there isn't really that much character growth to be done, but there also still is that much character growth to be done in a way. It feels good, it feels sad, it will tear you apart in the best ways, and I loved it. And I'm not even gonna tell you any more than that, okay? Maybe that's horrible of me because this is supposed to be a book wrap up and I'm not telling you about the book, but I just want you to read this book. I think Fredrik Backman is a master in writing, in story writing, in character building. He will go on these tangents where you're like, where are you going with this? Like he will go in these really long like rambles, and then at the end of it, he'll tie it all up with like one or two sentences, and you'll be like, oh, like it'll feel so good, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I see what you did there. And it's just so genius the way he writes. It's so unique. I've never read anyone who writes like Fredrik Backman does. This book was so good. While I was reading this book, and I mentioned this in my vlog, but I do wonder how much of his books are like Fredrik Backman and how much of them are his translator, because his books, he writes in Swedish and they get translated to English for like people like me to read because I don't know Swedish. So I always like, when I talk about his writing style, I always wonder, is this his writing style or is this the translator's writing style? Because you never know like how much creative license the translator is putting into a book. And I feel like a good translator will capture the essence of what the author originally intended, but also spin it in a way so it works well in the translated language. Because there are obviously, you know, there are probably a lot of things in Swedish that don't work the same way in English. Like the heavy hitting, the hard hitting things will not hit the same way. So the translation has has to be done so well where it still is true to the original author, but also works not in the original language. Like, it's just fascinating to me, but I love this book. Perfect, 5 stars, made me ugly cry, for real. And there we have it. We finally made it to our last book, the thriller, the first thriller I've picked up in 6 months, The Thrashers by Julie Soto. And yeah, Julie Soto, the romance author, was the one to make me break my thriller slump. I've said this over and over again this year, but this is a year where authors have been branching out of the normal genres, and I've been loving it. Like, Julie Soto is writing a romantasy and a thriller this year. Emily Henry is writing what seems to be more of a general fiction, literary fiction this year instead of a romance. Mariana Zapata just announced that she's writing a romantasy this year. Stephanie Garber is writing her first adult novel. Everyone's just branching out, and I'm loving it because I have now read a thriller successfully. So this one is a YA thriller. It's very Pretty Little Liars-esque. And in this one we follow Jody, who is a student at the high school. She belongs to this very popular group called the Thrashers, named after Zach Thrasher, who's kind of like the head of them, this very popular golden child guy of the school. But Jody always feels kind of like left out a little bit of this group. She's kind of just like automatically in this group because she grew up with Zach and they've been best friends since they were 6 years old. So she kind of naturally just like got into this book by sticking by Zach's side, but she's never really felt like she's truly fit in. Like, she's not conventionally good looking like the other 2 girls in the group are, Paige and Lucy. She doesn't have like some of the similar interests they do. She's just very outsider in the group, but she's in the group. One day, however, Emily, another girl at the school who actually was trying to like get into the Thrashers, dies. And so everyone immediately points their eyes towards the Thrashers and they're like, it's your fault. All these rumors start, all these like texts reemerge, and as a result, the Thrashers start distancing themselves with each other because now they are people of interest. As they split apart, they start like, you know, maybe not trusting each other as much. There's also some weird things that are happening, some like weird flickery light things, some like other incidents that happen, and like all of them start getting these mysterious texts by an anonymous number. And Jody just feels more outside of the group than she ever has. So you can definitely see the Pretty Little Liars connections in here. There are definitely a lot of similarities between that, a lot of similar vibes, and I feel like this also gave A Good Guy's Girl to Murder as well, just with like the high school student like investigating a crime and trying to like figure out clues and stuff. It had a bit of that vibe mixed in with the Pretty Little Liars, and I just found this book to be fun to read. Like, was it the perfect read? No. Are thrillers my favorite genre? Still no, but the fact that I picked this book up and enjoyed it as a thriller speaks volumes. Like, that is very good for me. I feel like what I liked about this book actually is that the twist wasn't crazy, which is kind of a funny thing to say because with thrillers a lot of the time, people look for a crazy twist. Like, if there's a good twist at the end, I feel like that's what people thrive for in thrillers. But this one was different in the way that like it was kind of just like a slow burn to the ending. You built up these things and you knew what was going to happen, but not in a bad way. Like, you just like built up this case and then you got this big fallout and conclusion at the end, but it wasn't like a crazy twist where you were like thrown and you were like, what? Like, where did that come from? I actually liked that we didn't have a twist at the end of this book because everything felt like it made sense. Like, everything had substantial evidence to back it up and it just felt very satisfying to me in that way. I also really liked how in this book, like aside from the thriller stuff, Julie Soto was able to capture the high school essence really, really well. And as someone who, like I have been saying, I've been getting bored of like YA high school type books, I liked how Julie Soto did it in here because she really captured like the insecurities of being a high school student really well in here, feeling like an outsider of the group. Again, something that I really relate to. I really resonated with a lot of things that the main character was thinking in here. Obviously not to like the extremes she was thinking in, but like I got it. Like, I understood it, and I think Julie Soto did a really good job with that. And also just like telling the story of every high school student in this book and how everyone felt like they didn't fit in or they were like clinging on to the social status by like fingernails. It was very well done. So that was The Thrashers, my first thriller in 6 months. Yay! That being said, those are the 13 books I read in April. We've wrapped everything up. We had 2 camera overheats, but we made it in the end. So let's get these books up onto the shelves where they belong. right, I'm gonna leave you guys here for now. If you liked this video, please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know what you read in April. What was your favorite book and what was your least favorite book? If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!